Hello, everybody. It's Stephen and Walter here for this week's episode of So Chatty, episode number 25 for September the 10th, 2021. And today it's all about your questions and your comments. And we have a few things here. And right off the bat, I'm going to tell you we may not have the answers for all of these, or we may not have the answers you're looking for, or we might just be making up the answers. So we'll find out. But before we do that, I just want to talk a little bit about, remind you, about the Idiot Quilter Retreat at the end of September. There is a link in the show notes for an FAQ file. It's a PDF. Click on that. It'll take you to my Google Drive. You can download it, and it will give you all the details about the retreat and about the cocktail party. I'll talk more about that in a second. It also will have the Zoom links for both the cocktail party on September 24th and the actual retreat on September 25th. Now, having said that, there's a couple of things you need to know. And I'm sorry if you've already heard this because you checked out my vlog or Idiot Quilter this week, but just bear with me because I want to make sure it's very clear for everybody. There is no pre-registration, and this is a free event. If you were at the retreat in the spring, I had a pre-registration and I established a waiting list. I can only handle 95 people on my Zoom license, and I had a lot more than that for the retreat. So I started a waiting list, and it just got a little bit cumbersome to handle. And yeah, I'm simplifying things this time a little bit. So if you wouldn't mind, though, just so I have some statistics, if you are going to attend the retreat, it would be appreciate it. That's the word I want. I would appreciate it if you just send me your name, and I will have your email address too, saying that, yeah, you're planning to attend. Now, this does not mean it's written in stone. If something comes up, life happens, whatever, that's fine, and you can't make it. But I would just want to know out of statistics, and I'll keep you posted as to how many we're up to. Now, right now, I've had a commitment from about 35 people for this. And I have a feeling that in the next week or so, that's going to go up a little bit higher than that. So what will happen on the day of the retreat, since there is no pre-registration, I can't guarantee somebody a spot. I would suggest that you show up right at 9 o'clock in the morning, Eastern Standard Time, September 25th, to get on to it. Because I'll be doing it by first come, first serve basis. And when I have 95 people, if I have 95 people, you know, I'm being optimistic here. I mean, how do you even get up to that number? So it's not going to be a big problem. I'm just basing this on what happened in the spring retreat. But I'll admit you in. Now, you can come and go as you please, and there may be a little problem, and I'm not sure how to handle that. If you decide that, okay, you've been on for a couple hours, and now you got to go out and run some errands, and you want to come back on later in the day, well, that's fine, as long as there is a spot left. Because when you leave, a spot's going to open up, and if, say, somebody else has come in, and I'll admit them to that spot. So maybe the best thing for you to do, oh, I forgot to turn off my email thing. I always forget to do that. Just a second. Okay, that's done. If you do leave and come back and there isn't a spot, I'm sorry. But if you might want to just leave your thing on, you know, you can turn off your video, you can turn off your mic for it. So we'll just see a blank screen, but it'll be a placeholder for you. Okay. We'll see how that works out. I don't know.
Depends on how many people you get.
Well, yeah, I mean, if I don't have the full 95 at one time, it's not a problem at all, but I have no idea. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm asking people to send me, just to let me know for statistical purposes. Mm-hmm. That's all that's for. So as I said, in the PDF file, there's lots of particulars there, so please read it, because I'm not going to take the time right now to go over it in detail, because I've already done that on the vlog and on Idiot Quilter. The cocktail party is an icebreaker party. Since I'll have people from all over the place, I just thought, you know, people aren't going to know each other. It just set the mood. And what that involves is you bring along for 7 p.m. Friday, September the 24th, bring along your favorite cocktail or drink, whatever you partake in, and a snack or something like that, and bring something to show. We'll have a little mini trunk show. And remember, this is open to not just quilters and sewers, although that will be the vast majority, I'm sure, but any crafters out there, art journalists, artists, whatever. Bring something along to show just for a few seconds. It doesn't have to be, we're not going to have a long, drawn out discussion about each item, but just to let people see what you're creating. We may play a game or two that night as well, and I might do a little bit of a mini trunk show with some of my quilts too. Again, it's just to break the ice. So it's going to run for maximum, it'll probably be only 2 hours. It depends. If we're all having a really great time and, whatnot, then it'll go for days. No, not really. But you know what I mean. Okay, so that's September the 24th for the cocktail party, September 25th for the retreat. The retreat runs from 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sorry to you guys that live out on the West Coast. That means it starts at 6 in the morning for you out there. But as I said, you can come on whenever you like. Hopefully there's a spot. Okay, so that's one thing. We have other news. And you may notice that we're doing So Chatty in what was my craft room. Yes, I used that in the past tense. We made an investment this week. What did we buy, Walter?
A long arm.
A long arm, yes. Don't you love it? Oh, your arm's longer than mine. But I'm cuter. Anyways, yeah, we bought a long arm. We took the plunge, and we're not absolutely sure when it's going to arrive, but we have a little bit of some reorganization to do. As you know, my sewing room, which you see usually, the sewing dungeon, is part of the workshop. And that's where the long arm's going to go. So we have been working at cleaning up that area, and I've been working getting rid of all of my crafting supplies. Yes, all of them. And converting this room into my sewing room. So right now behind me, you can't really see it, but there's a mess in here. I'm working on it in stages every day. I've had some friends of mine. They belong to my little art journaling group that we get together once a month on a Zoom meeting. And they're all serious crafters, and I've had them coming throughout the week, cleaning out my stash. Shopping Stevens Stash Store is what I've been calling it. And I actually have videos of that that I will be showing later. I'm probably going to put a whole little special presentation together showing the transformation of this room to my sewing room and the lead up to the long arm. So it has nevertheless been a very busy week, to say the least. And I'm still finding stuff, and I'm being ruthless. I'm just ripping the guts out of this place. It's long overdue. And if anything, getting this long arm has made us do some major clean out. Walter's been cleaning out his workshop. Oh my God, it's a hole. Okay, just to give you an example of what you might find when Walter cleans out his workshop. He found a Meccano set from when he was a kid.
No, I knew it was there.
You knew it was there, but did you know exactly where it was?
Yeah, I knew where it was.
Oh.
Because I occasionally pulled stuff out of the box to use it, so. But
did you find Jimmy Hahn?
But today I found 2 drills I didn't realize I had.
Oh, there you go. Yep.
Well, they were battery operated. They're like
Dead.
20 years old. They're dead. They ended up going to the dump. So.
No. Well, anyway, so he's got his hands full with that. And yeah, we have a couple of major items we have to remove from there. One is a table saw, an old table saw.
And the sucker is heavy.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to take I think I figured out how to separate the top from the bottom. So I'm going to do that later on and see if we can remove it in 2 pieces as opposed to one, because the one piece the whole thing's really heavy.
We're not young men
I can't
anymore.
remember. I can't remember bringing it into the house. I took it from my mom's place.
Yeah, I don't.
And
I don't
that's when
remember
I
either.
had the truck.
Well, it was 26 years ago.
Yeah, so
yeah. Yeah, and speaking of finding things you didn't know you had, I found all kinds of craft things that I had forgot that I had bought years ago. So how much joy have they been giving me? Nothing. The ladies were really a little uptight at first. They thought, well, I said, take whatever you want. Well, we don't want to be greedy. I said, be greedy. stock up, go. I was down there saying, if you're getting that, you got to get this too. And the whole bit, I wanted it out. And they said, well, you're sure? I said, I saved a few little things for myself. And in fact, I'll probably go through what I saved for myself and get rid of some of that too. I am definitely in the purging mood. That doesn't happen very often with me. So, yeah, I found a lot of interesting goodies, blasts from the past that they don't even make anymore. Probably for good reason, I've also discovered, because I never used them. But yeah, literally, the amount of money that I spent on all of that stuff would have bought us 1.5 long arms, I'm pretty sure, if you actually could get the money from it. And I'm not asking for any money for any of this stuff. It was all free to ladies because I just wanted to go someplace that wasn't landfill. I want to go to some place where it would get new life, and be used. And these ladies are like, I've done it all in the crafting stuff. And that's not a brag. I have done it all. You name it. I've tried the technique. I've done it. I did it for a while. I got tired with it. I moved on. So that's why I'm moving on to my quilting, and I need a good place for that. And the long arm is an exciting new learning curve as well. Some assembly required, apparently. Yeah. So we're excited about that, but it will be a few weeks before we get it, I'm sure. It may even be a little longer than a few weeks. I'm not sure about that, but that's okay. That gives us time to get things organized and ready to go when it does arrive. Okay, so that's about all the excitement we've had this week on that. So let's look at some of your questions and comments. Now, the first one comes from Jackie Sparks, and she wants to know about airing fabric and storing it. Well,
I suppose airing fabric if it's been sitting on your shelf for a long period of time. However, I've never really thought of that.
No, I've never really thought about it either. But I do know now, I keep projects in those plastic project boxes, that are about 12 inches by 12 inches. Leftovers from my scrapbooking days. And they say that those are, like, they're okay for short-term storage, but they don't recommend you keep fabric for years and years and years in one of those plastic bins because they're kind of airtight. And I don't know, like in some of those plastic cases, I don't know if the ones I have can do it, but I've heard about like chemicals leaching out of the plastics. And, I guess it depends on what they're made of. I don't generally store fabric in them. I store fabric pieces for projects that I'm working on. And I got to go through, that's one of my parts of my process of moving my sewing room into this room. I've got to go through all those cases because some of those projects I'm never going to do. And I do have fabric in there for them, and I need to pull them out and get them on the shelves. So in a sense, I need to air them. I know that when it comes to quilts, if you have quilts stored in a closet or something like that and you have them all folded, they do recommend that you take them out of the closet once a year or once every year and a half or something, and refold them and not refold them on the same folds that they went in, because that will crease them permanently and you will never get those creases out of a quilt. Most of my quilts are laid out on the guest room bed or hung on my quilt rack, although I do have a few smaller ones kind of folded up, but they haven't been there that long. But I have heard that you should do that. Now, it might depend on your environment. If you lived in a really humid environment, I don't know, the batting, the quilt itself, they might absorb moisture from the air. And so you might want to take them out on a sunny day and hang them on a line or something and let them air out. Or if you're keeping them someplace in a basement that's a little bit on the damp side, you could get mold or things like that, I would think. So yeah, you don't want to do that. You want to keep them, from what I've read, you want to keep your quilts, and this goes for fabric too, out of direct sunlight in a coolish place that has a constant temperature, as within 5 degrees either way of something. So a place, I did read someplace where they said if you would live in that space, you can store your quilts and fabric in that space. So airing it out, I don't air out my fabric.
Yeah, I haven't aired out my stuff. I have some stuff in plastic containers, and I have some of my stuff in IKEA drawers.
Yeah.
And I have to reorganize that stuff because it's I don't have enough space for, I don't have enough drawers for all my fabrics. So I think I'm going to be taking out some of the fabric that I've got in plastic and putting it on my shelf because it'll be more efficient use of the space. And but before when I get new fabric, I usually wash it right away and dry it and iron it and stuff like that. And then sometimes when I am about to use it for something I'm making, I will re-iron it again because it has creases in it from storing. So
Now, you see, I don't wash my fabric before I make a quilt. Only on the rare occasion, if I bought something like that was a black, a pure black, a large chunk of that, or a red, sometimes those fabrics will bleed depending. And so I might wash those, but it's rare. I don't. And I know there's two schools of thought about quilt making. There are those who say you should pre-wash everything before you quilt. I think there's more people now leaning towards not washing them because I think that's something that came from back in the day when fabrics weren't as stable as they are the way they're manufactured now for making quilts. And so they don't really shrink. But if you're worried about it, you'd have to do that.
well, I do it for clothing because of the possibility of shrinkage. Because,
Yeah. Well, I can see that.
But and I have noticed some shrink more than others. So and the what do you call it? The sizing comes out of it, so the material often feels very different after it's been washed.
Well, when it's got sizing, it feels very stiff, like kind of a thing. I like that feel, but that's the sizing. So anyway, so that is, we sort of led into the storage question as well. Walter already told you what he's doing, and I've already started doing this, and I'll be doing it here. You see those shelves behind Walter right now, they have a lot of junk on them because that's just a temporary place to put things while I'm moving things around in here. But that's where my fabric's going to go. And if you've seen the Idiot Quilter, not this week, but the week before, I think I showed you how I've put it on the shelves that I have in the other area that I was in. And I fold them in a certain way and put them on the shelf. And so they look like little mini bolts of fabric. And I did that. I wasn't even thinking about the fact that that also helps to air them. But also because it looks pretty and I can see what I've got. If they're tucked away in a drawer.
Yeah, actually that's a good idea because I forget what I've got. So, and the thing is that I haven't been doing this for very long, but a year or so, like the sewing garments and stuff. So I'm not at a point where I've got like fabric hanging around for 10 years type of thing.
Well, neither do I, because I've only been quilting now, what, maybe 4 years? Time flies when you're having fun.
I don't know if it's been that long. Has it been that long?
Well, I started quilting just before we did our second trip to Australia, and that was 2019. And because remember, I bought the sewing machine just before we went to Australia, the new sewing machine, the one you're using, the 6700P. So that would have been
2018, I think.
Yeah, 2018 when I got started. So what's this? This is 2021. So it's not even 3 years.
Yeah.
It just feels like 4. It's COVID feeling. Anyway, so I hope that helps you out, Jackie, with that question. That's about all we know. I'm sure there's other people on here that know a lot more about storing a fabric than we do. So feel free to write a comment about what you do or what you would recommend. Okay, number 2. Quilted clothing, making it. This comes from Kathy Fortner.
I haven't made anything quilted yet. And the future project that we're talking about doing is a bomber jacket, and it has a quilted front to it. So
yeah, but it's not a patchwork, is it?
No, it isn't patchwork. It would be a solid color with probably just a crosshatch.
Because I have a suspicion that what Kathy's hinting at here is, and I've seen this, especially in more in ladies' clothing than men's, but like vests or little jackets.
I've never done that yet. Actually, that it is interesting concept, and I have thought about it. but I haven't actually done it yet. So,
But I guess you'd have to. Okay, I'm trying to picture this. I guess you would make the fabric you'd need. Like, for example, okay, let's say you and I were going to do this. So I put together a patchwork of fabric, and I'd make, say, 2.5 meters, 3 meters equivalent of that, because that's what you usually buy to make, say, a shirt or something like that, or for a project, right? And then you could take it and you would probably cut it the way you cut as if it was one piece of fabric. But what I'm wondering about is, what do you do about the interior? Because you have all the seams. So,
well, you maybe if you're using it for a jacket, you might use a make it a line jacket. So where,
but it could be lumpy on the inside. So I'm wondering, like, because on a quilt, you put batting between the layers.
yeah, you would put batting in this as well, because
But would you use the same kind of batting as you use in making a quilt, or is there
I'm not sure.
some
Like
kind of
we're in the
clothing
bomber
grade?
jacket that we're going to be doing, where you're going to be using batting. So I'm not sure if there's a clothing batting that you can use, or
So you don't know what the batting is yet that
no,
you're
I don't
going to
know
use.
what we're going to be using yet. But I would, well, actually, what I would think that you would do, in my guesstimate of doing it, is that you would figure out what piece of fabric you're using for. You might, cut out your fabric first, your top fabric first,
Yeah.
right? And then actually sandwich it and quilt it, right?
Yeah.
And then put the pieces together.
Oh, okay. So basically, making a quilt that you're going to chop up afterwards.
Well, you could do it that way, but then you'd have to quilt the entire piece of fabric, right?
Yeah.
But if you took, let's say, this shirt and you cut out a side panel, right?
Yeah.
You cut the side panel out and then you quilt it.
Yeah. Okay.
But I don't know. I'm just guessing. I've
Never looked
done
into it.
So
I am sure there are websites we can
I
go to and
believe
find that.
Brendan has done that before.
Has he?
So
Well, Trudy at Ultimate Sewing, she had a jacket that she was wearing that was all quilted once,
Yeah.
and that she had made. She did a lot of embroidery on it as well.
can ask her.
It was
so.
a beautiful jacket.
Yeah, but it's not something I've really done yet. I mean, it's an interesting concept, and yeah, maybe that sometime down the road I'll do something like that.
I can't see it being something a man would want to really wear.
It's more, I can see it for ladies wearing something like that, but I can't see it much for a man other than, let's say, this bomber jacket that we're going to do with just a crosshatch pattern on it or something like that.
Although,
I mean,
if you found fabric that had a masculine feel for it, and like, okay, let's say you were making something like a vest or something, you could, like, say the person was a car enthusiast, you could find fabric with cars on, or they liked superheroes or something, like, or Star Wars. I suppose you could. It would be I think it would be something that people would wear for special occasions.
And it depends on what kind of quilting you're talking about. Like, I mean, are you talking fine detail quilting, or are you just talking a crosshatch or something like that?
I would think you would want to just do something simple like a crosshatch or something like that.
I did do this bag that, well, I haven't finished it. That was that bag that I did halfway through.
Oh, yeah.
And we quilted it. And what we did was we quilted the piece of fabric and then cut the pieces out from it.
Yeah.
After it's been quilted, you can do it that way too.
But it was layered, right?
It was layered, yeah.
So you had the backing, you had the top, and you had the batting, and then you just did your quilting on it and put together. Yeah. Well, I guess the clothing idea is probably the same way.
Yeah.
I wonder if that would make it heavy, though.
Yeah, it would.
Make it a heavy garment, like.
It would be a more substantial garment. Plus, it would be a warm garment. So it would be leaned towards a jacket of some sort.
Yeah, I would think on that. Well, I was also going to say, I wonder too if you can get a lighter weight you can get lighter weight batting too. That might help. I don't know. This is something that needs to be explored further, and I am sure there are YouTube channels or websites where you can find out all this stuff too. Okay, so next question is from Kathleen Davis. She says, using fasteners, all the ways we have used them. That we have used them. Well, I haven't used a lot of fasteners.
Well, I've used like regular buttons. Right? I've used jean buttons where, you have big...
We've used zippers in bags.
I've used zippers,
and you've used zippers
in pants and in jackets, open-ended zippers and closed-end zippers. If you have a bag, it's closed-end zipper.
Yeah.
If you have a jacket, you have to have an open-end zipper so you can separate the two parts.
Well, I've done on some of the bags that I made, the more elaborate bags, I did use like magnetic fasteners, toggle clasps. I don't know if that's the right name for it, but where you stick it through the little brass fitting and turn it and that kind of thing. So I've used those kind of fasteners.
And I've used snap fasteners for buttons where you just snap them open. Metal ones mostly. I've used these aren't really fasteners, but I've used grommets to make a hole in your fabric for a drawstring. I've used so a drawstring is actually kind of a fastener.
Yeah, it's a drawstring.
And I've used I haven't actually put them on. I have bought some, but it's more of a strengthener. Is a I forget what they're called. They're tacks or whatever for corners of your pockets and that.
But that's a stitch, isn't it?
No, you can use it as a stitch, but you can. There's actually rivet. That's what.
Oh, okay, that's what you're talking about.
Rivet for a jean or something like that.
So I'm not really sure.
Now, I don't have anything fancy like fancy. I have been looking at getting a fancy tool that allows you to put fasteners together easily, but I've just been using basically a hammer to put a fastener on. So,
yeah, well, it's a hammer with a thing, right?
Yeah, you have to have the right tools for putting the fastener on.
Ooh, little aside, you'll never guess what I found, and I kept these out in my sewing room. I found a system for putting all those different ones on, that you have to use your hammer, but it has different interchangeable heads for different sizes.
Oh, okay.
I'll have to show you that.
All right.
You might be interested in that.
Interesting.
Yes. And I found the little hammer that comes with it, and I found the little mat too. Yeah, see? Amazing things when you start to clean up in that. So anyways, yeah, well, you more than me.
Bill. I have used more than he has.
Well, you don't use fasteners and quilts.
I use buttons the most because I happen to like the look of buttons. So they're a little bit more of a pain because you have to do a buttonhole and sew the button on. But personally, I kind of like buttons better. But a lot of people use snaps because they're easy to put on. So
right down the front of the shirt, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, we used to call that in the 70s a rape shirt.
Yeah.
You'd walk up to somebody that was wearing those cowboy shirts with those snaps.
And then you can
rape.
You can do that on your pants too, and have tearaway pants.
Ooh, wow! Hey, quilted tearaway pants, new trend. Yeah. Okay, so Brenda Logan says color palettes. How do we use them? We don't. Okay, moving on. Oh, I'm not really sure what Brenda means by color palettes. And when I hear color palette, I think of the paints department of Home Depot. But
a color wheel.
Yeah, well, yeah, for talking about. But I think I don't know. Like some people will swatch out their fabrics before they make a quilt.
I think that's more pertinent to quilter than necessarily is if you're sewing a garment.
Well, yeah, because the garment's all going to be like maybe
it's
one
either
or two
one
colors.
color, or if you want to make a different color. So I just get a fabric. If I do a different kind of color, I'll get a fabric that I never really only ever done it once, but get a fabric that sort of matches the shirt. So
yeah, like.
And I'm not that picky. It doesn't have to be an exact match. It just has to be something that I think goes with it.
Some people get really uptight about that. But no, I was going to say with quilting, when I'm picking my colors for a pattern, and let's say it says you need 5 colors or something with it. Well, I'll look at what my focal fabric is, and we've mentioned this before, and I will pull out the colors from the focal fabric. So if there's a green and a pink and a teal or something, then I'll try to look for other fabrics that are close to that, depending on the design too. And in quilting we have, light, medium, and dark kind of deal, which do I ever follow that? No, probably should, but I don't.
But not only that, some people get really uptight. Let's say you've got a fabric that has a color in it that you want, you're matching, but you don't necessarily go and get really anal about it and say that it has to be exact match. You get a match that's similar to it, and then or you think goes with it, okay. And then once you've got all your fabrics, this is my guess, once you get all your fabrics laid up together, you might alter some of the colors because the fabrics that you've got laid together, you don't necessarily like the way they go together.
Yeah, so if you think of a palette, when I hear palette, I think of paint chips in Home Depot. You know, you pick up a strip and it's got all the shades of this one color kind of a deal. It goes from light to dark or whatever in that color family or group. And what Walter just said, when I pick out my fabrics for a quilt, I'll fan them out. They're folded and I just lay them on top of each other so you see a piece of each one. And then I stare at it and decide, do I like that combination? Or sometimes I'll have a couple that could work and I'll swap them out and see which one I want.
Too often I've seen in quilt stores and that somebody will bring in a fabric that has different colors in it, and they'll be picking out 2 or 3 other fabrics with it, and they're hemming and hawing because they can't get an exact match. And yet all 3 fabrics that they've picked out will go with the fabric that they've got. It's just not an exact match. And people get really uptight about that for some reason. I don't really know why.
I usually take a picture of them all laid out, and if I have to get another fabric for it or something and I can't find something I like in my stash and I go to the quilt store, I will have that picture on my camera and to remind me. Or I will sometimes actually take a little teeny piece of the fabrics with me and do it that way. And sometimes I've taken the actual fabrics.
Actually, you're better off taking the actual fabric because the color, you have a color shift on your phone. So
yeah. But the other thing that people use their phone for in quilting, and I mentioned this before, the low, medium, high, or the light, medium, dark, okay, sequence. If you lay your fabrics out, like I just suggested, and take a picture of them, but take a picture in black and white, because then you will see the value. That's what they call it, the value. So your dark, you can tell, well, which one's your darkest fabric from the other. Because sometimes you can't tell that with the naked eye because it may be fairly close. But if you take a black and white picture of it, you will see, because it'll all be gray tones when you do that. And I've done that before as well. But like I said, I don't get that uptight about the whole light, medium, dark thing. And the quilting police haven't got me yet. So I don't know. But anyways, that's why I think of palette. And also we mentioned the color wheel, and I did do a whole thing about the color wheel on either So Chatty or an Idiot Quilter back sometime ago.
I've never really used the color wheel. I sort of more go with my gut feeling.
Yeah, that's what I do too. However, the color wheel, I use the color wheel when I'm stuck in the same colors over and over. I like blues. Everybody knows that. And so I tend to use a lot of blues in my quilts. Blues and purples and shades of blue and things like that. So sometimes it's a good idea to mix it up a little bit. So I will use the color wheel for that. I'll look and see like knowledge's colors, complementary colors, just to give me an idea of what I can do. And I have used the color wheel. I've got a focal fabric, but I'm not really particularly sure which colors I want to pull out of that focal fabric, and so I will use the color wheel then, but I don't use it very often. In fact, I just found 3 more color wheels that I had physically enough. All the things that you find. Okay, so Brenda, I don't know if that's what you're asking or not, but
yeah, some people wanted to find a formula to pick a color, and I don't think you can really do that. I think that's a lot of it's personal
taste
too. Like I tend to, like him, I tend to go for blues and stuff like that.
No kidding.
I tend to shy away from browns and
I shy away from browns and greens, and possibly yellows and oranges.
Yeah,
I will use yellows and oranges, but I wouldn't use an orange fabric or yellow fabric. I'll never say never as a focal fabric.
To use what they call a cold yellow as opposed to a warm yellow.
Yeah. So you go for more mustard or you'd go for baby poop as opposed to French's mustard.
No. French's mustard but not baby poop.
No, okay, fine. Whatever. So number 5. This is one that I've had from several people. Can you fix my machine? No. Now, you see, I wrote a little note here. General comments we get from people who think we're sewing machine repair people.
Just because we're guys, we're not.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it because we're male? I mean, no. Do these people not have a dealer? You might not if you bought your machine online, or you're just too lazy to Google it. Okay?
I mean, there's some things that I may be a little bit more mechanical at than the average person. Like, I know how to oil my what do you call it?
I don't know.
Embroidery machine. But
Yeah, well,
just follow the instructions.
Yeah, it tells you that in your manual.
And I will attempt maybe a fix faster than maybe some people would, but I don't know how to fix them.
No, we don't.
I know the general working mechanism of a sewing machine, but I mean,
well, the thing is, I've had some people. This is actually a very touchy subject for me, because I have had some people write comments and blast me because I did not show them how to fix a problem I was having with my machine. I talked about the problem, said what I did. Well, they said, well, my dealer said you should do this. Go with what your dealer tells you. I'm not a sewing machine repairman. I've had some that have asked me questions and figured that I could just give them a quick fix right there, how to do it, and that bang, and that was going to solve all their problems with a sewing machine. No, I can't do that for a variety of reasons. Not just because of my lack of knowledge, but I may never have experienced that problem. We can only talk about what things we've experienced and how we've handled them. That's all.
I mean, if my sewing machine doesn't stitch right, I don't just grab it and run it to a repairman, but I'll try and figure out why it's doing what it's doing.
Well, there's a procedure for this. You know, like you look at it, you analyze the problem, you try different things that you already know about, you check your manual. Okay? Yes, it may take some hunting in a manual, because Janome manuals are just crap. I can tell you that for the Janome machines, the way that they're set up, and they give you only a minimal amount of information. So you may have to take some time and do some research. And that's going to, like I said, take time. Go on Google, go on YouTube, plug it in, ask it as a question on Google. You know, Google is set up so you can actually ask it a question. So my sewing machine is making a funny noise. Why is my sewing machine making a funny noise? You want to know something? Some things will come up. They may not be the answer, but it's a start. And if you do have a local dealer, if you bought your machine from a dealer, hopefully you have a decent dealer, and you can go in and say, look, I'm having this problem with my machine, and they'll look after you. If you bought it online, you're fucked. Oh, oops, bad language. You're screwed. Okay, you got that. Never mind. We're all grown-ups here. So, yeah.
And see, there's some people, like there's a lady in my sewing group that her machine jams up because she hasn't cleaned it out on a regular basis, or she's using an old needle or something like that. But she's never taking it in for a repair or a tune-up or anything. And if you even suggest that, she goes, well, that's going to cost a lot of money. I'm not going to do that.
Yes, it is going to cost some money.
I mean, that's part of owning a sewing machine. Mm-hmm. You really need it to be looked at once in a while.
Yeah. They are fairly robust machines, but they still need to be looked after. Clean it, oil it, change the needle, make sure you're threading it correctly. Don't assume that you have. If you're having a problem, get out your manual, look again, and be very particular.
Like I've had it a couple of times where my machine's going weird, and all it turns out is that it slipped out of the thread path properly.
Yep.
So
yeah, but we're not qualified sewing machine repairmen. All we do is tell you about what we've experienced and how we handled it.
I wouldn't mind taking.
Yeah, I think it'd be really interesting. You know, there is a guy on YouTube called the Sewing Repair Guy, I think it's called, or something like that. And we watch him because he's like oftentimes restoring old machines and showing you the workings of them. And sewing machines aren't that complicated. Yeah, the computer component parts are, because that's a whole different area, but we're talking about the mechanical ones. But I wouldn't mind taking a course if we could find one someplace, because I think it'd be good.
Like you had a problem with your embroidery machine, and it was a fluke accident.
Yep.
Thread got sort of caught into it. And I looked into, okay, can we take it apart and have a look at it? Well, I realized that I would have to take every panel off to actually look at it. And I said, no, I'm not touching that. You got to take it in for repair.
And the thing is, for the headaches, it was worth the money. I mean, yeah, it cost me about $180 for that, but it was done by somebody who knows exactly what the problem was, how to fix it, the whole bit.
And it's basically a $3,000 machine.
Yeah.
And you don't want to go messing around with stuff with
No.
the $3,000 machine for $185.
Yeah.
So.
And, and part of that money, it was not $185. I said $180.
Okay, well.
Jeez, do you listen?
No, I don't listen.
Apparently not. Jeez, there'll be a test after this. I also had them clean it and tune it up. And that was the base for that is $110. So really, it wasn't bad. So if you're going to buy a good machine, a decent machine, then you have to be prepared, and we've said this before, to invest in its regular maintenance. It's worth it. Okay, so another question we had here. I don't know who asked this, but it's several people. Why do we sew, and who inspired us to do so? Well, I think we kind of answered that last week when we did the interview with each other. So I don't think we need to go into details, but why do we sew? Because we like it. It's fun.
Because it's something to do. Why does anybody do anything?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, it's, I have an interest. I have always had an interest, like from when I was a little kid, when I used to watch my mom sew clothes. I've always had an interest in sewing. And sometimes you sew because it's a need to on a need to basis. Like men often sew for not necessarily for clothing, but they often sew boat covers and things like that. So and that's a different kind of sewing. But I was always curious how to make a man's shirt and stuff like that. And part of that reason is because I always have a hard time finding sizes that I need in a store. And I don't like the patterns that I can find. And if I do like a pattern I can find, it turns out it's some designer shirt that costs an arm and a leg. So,
of course, mind you, are you saving any money on shirts that you make?
No. Well, no. But if you compare it to, okay, I mean, I used to buy my shirts at Costco type of thing, right? So they're $20 a piece, right? But I mean, the ones that I make now cost me 40, 50, 60 bucks, right? But then but I didn't shop at like Crossings or those other stores, and because their shirts there were $90 or $100 or $150. Right?
Yeah, I know.
So if I compare my shirts to a more designer place, then I'm saving money.
Yeah,
but if I compare it to Costco, I'm losing money.
Well, I got into sewing by accident. I was always interested in sewing only from the standpoint of view that my mother had a treadle machine, which she wouldn't let us touch when I was a kid at all. And I just found it kind of fascinating because it was a machine, and I've always been fascinated by machines. But I didn't have any desire to sew until, for some reason, we walked into a Costco one day, and there was a $180 brother sewing machine with 50 decorative stitches, and I didn't buy it to sew. I bought it to use as a crafting machine, because the trend then was, putting decorative stitches on tags and things like that, and, sewing through scrapbooking paper and stuff like that, kind of a deal. And then it kind of led to my first wall hanging.
Yeah,
and
so
then,
you sort of fell into it.
Yeah, then I found a whole new world.
Well, like, you did have an interest, though, and I had a serger that I inherited from my sister.
Oh, yeah.
And that you wanted to make napkins.
I wanted to make napkins. For the same reason he's talking about shirts. I wanted cloth napkins. And I had cloth napkins. But cloth napkins are expensive. And we use cloth napkins every day. And when I say we, I mean I do. Walter looks at his, and it sits there on the table. I actually use it. Okay. Everything I looked at, one, I didn't find anything that I really liked, and they wanted an arm and leg for it. For a plain white cotton or linen napkin. It was like 20, 30, 40 bucks if you want to buy 4 of them. And I thought, it's just a piece of cloth with sewing around the edges. So when we got this old serger, I decided, I thought, well, I'll give it a try because I could probably make my own napkins out of it. Because, I mean, how difficult can that be? And that contributed to the whole thing, too. Because, well, if you make napkins, you can make table runners, and then you can make quilts, and you go from there. So, yeah, that's how I got into sewing and why I sew. I sew because I enjoy it.
It's a hobby, something to do.
Well, I'm a creator. I've always been a creator. I like to make things. And that's why I had so much scrapbook crafting supplies. Because if it was new out there, some new technique, I want to try it. Well, that's what I like about sewing too, because there's new techniques all the time and new ways to do things, especially with quilting. Quilting, you can get very, very creative. Like, look at art quilts. I have yet to make a large art quilt. I've dabbled a little bit, but I've never made like a art quilt or even what would be called a modern quilt. But there's such a variety of things you can do. So I like that idea. So our next question then is, I don't know who this came from. How do you decide on your next project? Do you look in your stash to use material you have? Well, how do you decide on your next project? I think
right now it's just because I'm in the sewing group and we do projects all the time. So usually the group of us decide what the next sewing project is. Some have bigger votes than I have. So we do that. I sort of follow along on that. And as needed basis, I'll sew more of one of the projects, like a shirt or something like that. If I want more shirts or something. So
see
that sort of, I guess me, it's more practical sewing. As far as I like learning new techniques, I get it in the classes from new techniques, and I may apply some of those techniques. I may modify. I've modified a couple of the patterns that I use that to simplify some of the techniques. So,
see, I would think, unlike quilting, I think sewing men's clothes, not women's clothes, men's clothes is limiting as far as creativity is concerned, because a shirt is a shirt. The difference in each shirt is the fabric that you're using, the color combination.
You can do things like do stripes or
yeah,
like
you could do stuff
which I haven't really done. So,
but you don't see a lot of the big fashion haute couture designers out there. They seem to focus more on women's fashions than they do on men. Men's fashions are basically a shirt, a pair of pants, a suit, a vest. Women, dresses can be they're works of art. They can be real works of art on that. And I think that makes...
I have not done anything that I would consider haute couture or whatever. That's not my thing right now.
No.
I mean, I may eventually branch off and do something a little bit more daring, but I haven't done that yet.
What, like flamingos?
No, I meant cloth wise, or maybe just, like I have thought of doing like a shirt and having a different panel, a different color, but and stuff like that, but I haven't really done that yet. So, and don't really consider, I always find people that wear that kind of stuff to be a little bit flamboyant, and I'm not really that flamboyant.
Oh, so. You're not? Okay, fine. Well, see, I think quilting lends itself, like I just said a minute ago about modern quilts and art quilts and things like that, to a great creative process. There are those who would say, well, all you're doing is cutting up fabric into little pieces and sewing it back together. Yeah, that's the essence of it. Yeah, really. But it's how you sew them back together, or the patterns that you create when you sew them together, that make it very creative. And that's why I like to do improv quilting at times, which is basically taking scraps and just fitting them together. Now, I've had a few failures on that, but I've had some successes too. And it's, if I'm in the mood for doing that, I'll just not do the pattern. Other times I will deviate from a pattern as well, because I got an impetus from it. I saw this, and sometimes I fuse patterns together. That's how I work at it. But what was the other part of that question? Do you look in your stash to use material you have? Yes. And I can never find the right color, and I have to buy more. It has that way of creeping up on you. Actually, I will shop my stash, as the expression goes, when I'm doing an improv quilt. What are you looking at?
No.
Well, apparently. So yeah, I'll shop my stash to put those pieces together. Or how I decide on my next project is if I see a pattern that stands out and I go, ooh. And that's why I have a huge box of patterns that I'll never ever get to in my entire life with it, because I could be working on a project and I suddenly see another one and go, oh, I like that one. I want to get started on that. Because no, got to finish this one. And that's why I have UFOs. And that's why a lot of people have UFOs. It's because squirrel, like that. So that's how I decided my next project. It's whatever grabs me when I see something that inspires me. Okay, number 8's got a lot of parts to it. How do you provide yourself with adequate lighting while working on detailed projects? Maybe this doesn't have a lot of parts in it. What did I have right down here? Just go talk amongst yourselves. Oh, okay. How do you provide yourself with adequate lighting while working on a detailed project? Well, can you ever have too much lighting? No.
With me, I just work with the existing light, and then if it's not light enough, I turn on another light.
I always can never have too much light. Now I'm a little worried about this room that I'm putting my sewing stuff into, because there's a track light above here that you can focus the lights on, but they're not that powerful. And this room can be very dark, even though there are 3 windows in this room. It is a eastern exposure, so in the morning you get lots of light, but at this time in the afternoon, if I was to turn off all lights right now, this room would be dark.
Actually, what we might consider doing is putting in a couple of
fluorescents.
Not fluorescent. Nowadays they're LED.
They're LED.
Yeah, LED fluorescents or whatever.
But we've got to run a wire. Well, we might be able to get it off the junction box from that track light. But anyways, We'll see about that. We'll see. Now, I do have lights on my machines as well, which is good. I'll have to see, because I'm not sure what the lighting is going to be like in this room. Now, my other room, I have a big LED fluorescent. Well, I guess you can't call it a fluorescent, but it looks like a fluorescent light, but it's LEDs, and that gives me quite a bit of light in there, and it's even darker in there because there's only like one little window, sort of a thing. But you can buy lighting strips that you can stick underneath the throat of your sewing machine, if your sewing machine doesn't have enough lights with it. New sewing machines in the the mid to upper ones now have like a variety of lights, but
like I have in my room that I've got I sew in, which is a 10 by 10 room. I have a fairly large picture window in there, and it gives off a fair bit of light if I sew during the day. It's provided it's a sunny day outside.
Picture window.
What? It's just a window.
Coming from the 50s or what? 60s.
Well, anyway,
window.
A window, a decent sized window, and a lot of times I just use that light from the window. I have an overhead light that's just
it's a light that's been there since the day we moved into the place.
And if I need a little extra light, I turn that on, and then I've got a knot light that I sometimes turn on if I need some more light. Yeah, I have some decent lighting under my sewing machine, so I find that's enough light for me.
Yeah, it really depends. Of course, as you get older too, your eyes aren't so great on the light too. So
I may someday install a larger fluorescent light into that room or something like that, so that it gives me a bit more light.
Yeah. So yeah, it's really up to the individual, I guess, on it. There's no real answer to that question, like a definitive statement.
You can go out and buy any kind of light for you, whatever your personal preference is. Back to personal preference.
Okay, another question I had here. Could you talk about all of the thread stands you've tried on your embroidery machine and tell why you used each one? Well, I haven't used that many embroidery thread stands. A thread stand. I have a 5-spool thread stand on my embroidery machine that I bought from Janome, and there are holes in the embroidery machine so you can mount it right on the machine. And that's what I use. Now, I have tried to use the standalone thread stands before. Don't like them. They tip over, they're cumbersome, they can get in your way. Some people, it depends on what you're doing too. If That's why I like the one that's attached to the sewing machine, because it's up and off the table.
And I have a thread stand similar to what he has, only it holds 2 spools of thread. Yeah. And I modified mine slightly. Because I use 5,000 meter combs a lot, and
size matters,
and it works with the 5,000 meter combs as well. So that's what I use.
Well, what's your modification?
Well, I put a little piece of cardboard underneath it that's bigger than the spool, and I just put a hole in the center and slide it down so the spool has a platform to sit on.
Yeah, because your thread will go underneath.
Yeah, I know.
Then it starts to pull or tangle, break.
You need it so that the thread will land on it.
Now, there are some very elaborate thread stands. There is one that Martelli makes that I've heard from a couple of friends of mine that have it. They love it. They swear by it. I don't know. It's very expensive. And I personally, I have no use for it.
I mean, what I have works for me, so why should I
that's what I mean.
Getting something else?
But there's different ones you can get. My recommendation is if your machine already has a spot where you can get a thread stand that has, 2 or 4 or 6, whatever, thread spools, and you can attach it right to the machine. That's the way I would go, because it's out of your way and it's not going to fall over. That's my recommendation, but I'm sure it depends on what you're sewing too. So have you seen the video on Superior Threads that talks about thread delivery?
No.
Oh, this is all about thread stands.
Yeah.
Do you have the Martelli ball bearing thread stand? That must be the one that's it. Nope, don't. What do you think of it? Don't know. I bought one and I'm sure I like it, or it's working like it's supposed to. Oh, this is from Adrian Bennett. It's supposed to make embroidery with metallic threads easier. When using metallic threads for embroidery, it depends on how they've been wound. Yes, I was told when I took an embroidery class that not to use your metallic threads on a horizontal stand. Use it on a vertical one because it pulls it more evenly or something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I never used the vertical
on
one,
the embroidery machine that I have. It has a horizontal spool holder, but I've never used that holder. I've only ever used my vertical stand.
I've used the horizontal one. I have the same embroidery machine as Walter has, a 550E Janome. And I have used the horizontal one, but that was because I was trying to get 6 different colors of thread on, and so I wanted to change so much. And I don't like it. I had problems with that. It would pull the thread. Now, it may have had to do with the way the spool was wound. And there is a rule. There's something called cross winding, and then I don't know what the other one's called. And I'm not sure which one. One of them is better designed for horizontal. And I'm not sure which one it is. I'm sure we can find it on the internet. I have to look that up.
Yeah, I've always used my vertical stand for all my spools of thread.
Yeah.
And it works. And I have metallic thread too, and it works okay too. So
yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Again, I think that's one of those things you have to experiment with.
Yeah. And what works for you and your machine. Yep. Some machines are a little more finicky than others. So
I bought one that was on a stand. It was kind of a heavy stand, and it was useless. It fell over all the time, even though it was a fairly heavy stand. And it was just a pain in the butt. So I gave up on trying to use a thread stand. I use what I told you I attach to my machine. Are they cheap? No. The ones that attach to the machine, no. The Janome ones are about $50, maybe a little bit more.
The two threads one is $50.
Okay,
I don't know what the 5 one is. It's more, obviously.
No, I thought I got the 5 for $50 at one time, but maybe that was a Shirley deal. I don't know. Anyways, that brings us to the questions that you have given us. And yeah, so I hope we answered them well enough for you. As I said at the beginning, we're just going by our experience. That's all we are. We are not experts in this. I don't know if there's any such thing as an expert.
No, I
anyways,
don't.
in this.
I mean, I started my sewing class with a bunch of women, or actually, the instructor is male, and the other ladies were women. The other people are women, and two of the ladies that were in the class went on about having this sewing group, and that they're what it was, well seasoned sewers and all this other stuff, and I felt extremely intimidated going into that class because I was fairly new at doing garments and things, and I since learned that they're they're not that experienced, or they seem to be making similar mistakes that I'm making. So
Yeah. So I don't know, that you learn as you go. And I think that's what I like about sewing. Back to that one question, Sarah, is because I'm always learning something. And that's the thrill. If it gets to the point where you don't learn something new every now and then about what your hobby is, no matter what the hobby is, it stops being fun, I think, because all you're doing is doing the same old thing over and over again. Okay, so for next week, I have no idea at all. No ideas. And as I've
we'll
said,
figure it out again.
we'll figure it out. It'll be something, I am sure. But whatever. So I hope you have a good week and go sew something nice for yourself. Be creative, and we'll see you next week. So say goodbye, Walter.
Goodbye, Walter.
Well, I can't get it up here.